The Tennessee Titans get back in Nissan Stadium, and they get back in the win column tonight with a 13-3 victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Welcome into Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. Alongside Kevin Dyson, I'm Will Boling. The number is 615-737-1045 as we react with you to the first Titans preseason win of 2022. Dr. Dyson, good to see you again.
Good to see you, brother.
Looking forward to reacting to a lot. Another start for Malik Willis. A running back battle that continues between Hassan Haskins and Julius Chestnut. And two offensive tackles who are battling for the right tackle position. Nicholas Petit-Frere, Dylan Radins, both getting significant work in tonight. And that's just on the offensive side of the football. The defense, the star of the night for the Tennessee Titans in this win over Tampa Bay. Dice, what's your opening takeaway? What's the biggest thing that you noticed today in this victory for Tennessee?
Well, let's start with names. Joe Jones.
Okay.
Yeah, we got guys making plays, being playmakers, being opportunistic. Oladaney, another guy keeps popping off the page. Defense was very aggressive, created turnovers, field position, got stops when necessary. It was a growth in that defense that you saw today. Offensively, we're going to talk about it. You know, the quarterback, my rookie guy, Malik, he was a little shaky in the beginning. But again, you warm up that engine, he gets warmed up, and he started getting a little more comfortable. You can see the growth in him. And again, the confidence level starts going up as you continue to get the reps. And that's when you like to see in your growth. And then finally, you want the time to talk about it. Who's going to be that fifth, sixth receiver? Do they keep six receivers? Are you going to keep all three quarterbacks? It's got a lot of decisions here coming up in the next week or so.
615-737-1045 is the number. Who impressed you the most tonight, Titans fans, as the Titans get the win 13-3 over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? It's Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. Lee Company, all you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com. Let's start with that defense, Kevin Dyson. The turnovers, the 4 sacks, the fumble recovery from Caleb Farley, Rashad Weaver, David Aneni. We see him flash in a big way in the backfield against Kyle Trask. I really like the battle that's going on at outside linebacker right now. David Aneni, Ola Adaney. I think that Titans fans can feel very comfortable in the level of aggression and the high level of play that their front seven has played with over these preseason games.
And the two individuals you mentioned, man, they're going blow for blow. Like, one makes a play, then the next guy makes a big play. They're like going at it. Like, it's one of those situations where you're not going to leave me. It's going to make it real difficult for you to make a decision on who you're going to keep in this circumstance. I think both players are shown to be aggressive and be consistent. Rashad Weaver, another guy who keeps popping off the page, continue to be aggressive in the backfield and being disruptive, run stopper also. It's a very formidable defense. It's going to be fun to watch this fall.
615-737-1045 if you want to join us. The first call of the night goes to Vince in North Carolina joining us this evening. Good evening, Vince. How are you?
Hey, good evening. Thank you, guys. Thank you for taking my call. It was a typical preseason game. We saw a little bit of everything tonight. I'm very intrigued by this developing battle between Malik and Logan Woodside. I think that Logan has done his good job over the last couple of years of maintaining and being out there, but Malik is being groomed to take the number 2 job, obviously. So I'd like to get your perspective on that, and whether you feel like Malik is ready to make that next make that next jump based on the little limited things that we've seen from him so far.
Thank you for the call, Vince. What do you think?
You know, it's one of those situations. I think Coach has illustrated it and been pretty poignant about it. Is we got to see what we need to see. You know, we see flashes, we see circumstantially that he has the potential to be really good, but then you see the other side of being a rookie quarterback, still learning the professional game, still learning his role within that scheme. And you know what you're getting with Logan. And is what you know we get from Logan enough to not get the young guy an opportunity to get a backup role for behind Tannehill. So it's going to be a interesting dynamic next week. Do they balance out the reps to be 50-50 to get a complete look at both guys and be able to make the right decision what you're going to do from that position standpoint. I'm interested to see what they do next week with both of them.
615-737-1045, the number if you want to jump in and react to the Titans' 13-3 win tonight. Malik Willis, 7 of 17, 80 yards. He was sacked 3 times, had his first touchdown pass as a pro to fellow rookie Chig Okonkwo, had one 21-yard pass, and also led the Titans in rushing for the second straight week. 5 carries, 42 yards, including a 24-yard carry. Said after the game he wanted to try to stay in the pocket more, but you're seeing that timing and that rhythm happen in real time for him. I do think he really bounced back well from a pretty rough first quarter and was certainly better in the second quarter. Took a step tonight.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, don't turn the ball over.
That's right.
And you're not turning the ball over, still moving and changed and scored in both games. So, that's at the end of the day, when a defensive-minded coach who plays field position is very calculated in the way he does his ball control and things of that nature, you don't want to turn the football over. And that's one thing we can say for sure about the young guy.
615-737-1045. Up next, Chris in Lewisburg talking about the offensive line, which is going to be a big point of conversation tonight. What's going on, Chris?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
We're good.
All right, man.
Yeah, I saw some good things tonight. Of course, I've only been able to watch the 2 preseason games, but to me it looks like the pass protection still is somewhat of a problem carrying over from last year, although it's not the starting line. But they're still trying to figure out where does Radins fit in and Ferrer. And I still don't think Radins looks all that good. I think Ferrer maybe has a leg up on winning that right tackle spot.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Look, I think Nicholas Petit-Frere had more good tonight than Dylan Radins did.
Yeah, and again, you talk about at this point in the game, somebody needs to take a stranglehold in that position. And I feel like they're getting Radins as many opportunities as they can, but it doesn't necessarily equate to something popping off the page for me. I still want to see him dominate and take that away from Nicholas. But Nicholas right now is showing consistency, tenacity, being able to play both sides tonight. So we're interested to see what they do next week as far as starting again. Do they give Radins another opportunity to be in the starting lineup and see what he can do? But right now, Nicholas seems to be the guy.
Titans Talkback presented by League Company. When we come back, more of your phone calls at 615-737-1045. We're going to discuss more of the Titans who impressed us the most. Talked a lot about the defense already. We're going to talk about this offense a little bit outside of the quarterback position and look at these 2 running backs that toted the rock tonight for the Tennessee Titans. 2 of them putting together some pretty good performances in a 13-3 win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Will Boling and Kevin Dyson with you. We're here till midnight. Put on a pot of coffee, hang out with us, talk some Titans. 615-737-1045. Titans Talkback rolls on right after this on 104.5 The Zone. Titans Talkback brought to you by Lee Company. Lee Company, all you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com. Join the conversation at 615-737-1045. Alongside Kevin Dyson, I'm Will Boling. Brett Batchelor making the show happen for us tonight as the Tennessee Titans defeat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 13-3 in preseason game number 2. Good to be back in Nissan Stadium tonight.
It was, man. It's been a long time coming, but you think about how just fast the season goes, man. You just appreciate being back in the stadiums and the nice, cool weather, a little muggy, but it wasn't hot like a typical August heat. So
that's right.
You got a lot of guys, got a lot of reps. It was fun to watch, fun to be in there again.
Malik Willis gets the start. We mentioned him in our opening segment. 7 for 17, 80 yards, sacked 3 times, 1 touchdown, quarterback rating of 75.6. Logan Woodside throws his 3rd interception in 2 preseason games, 7 for 11, 56 yards, and a quarterback rating of 38.4. But as you said in the opening segment, the interception is what continues to be notable, and that's continuing to be the biggest difference between Logan Woodside and Malik Willis so far.
Yeah, I mentioned it. You got a ball-controlled, I should say ball-controlled, a coach who's very, very efficient in time management. And turnovers can derail possessions and things of that nature. And so at the end of the day, he's going to make some mistakes. He's missing some throws, missing some opportunities, but he's protecting the football. And is that enough for him to take the number 2 spot away? It remains to be seen. And that's why I go back to I'll be interested to see the split for the Week 3 preseason game.
And we will talk about that because now the question is, does Ryan Tannehill get any action next week against the Arizona Cardinals?
Maybe it depends on how they do all week.
Yeah.
See how they do and feel like they need to see something more live. I don't know, but at this point, if you want your main guys right before the regular season to be out there anymore, especially since there is, presumably a battle between two players right now in the same position. So, yeah, I'd be surprised if he was playing on next week.
615-737-1045 is the number. Who impressed you the most tonight for the Tennessee Titans in a 13-3 win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Let's look at these 2 running backs. Hassan Haskins gets the majority of the carries at that position tonight. 12 carries for 39 yards. A 10-yard rush was his longest. Julius Chestnut, 10 rushes for 35. He had a 12-yard run mixed in there. And I think the commonality between these 2 guys, quick feet for big backs. Mm-hmm. I thought they both had some pretty good cuts for guys who you would expect to run through somebody and not around them.
Right. And, when you want your backups back up, you want him to be kind of complement of the 2, right? Be able to catch the ball at the backfield, be able to move the chains that way. Also be able to tote the rock 2, 3, 4 reps in a row while the main guy gets a rest. So, and so you want to see kind of a mix between the 2, and that's what you're seeing so far. The dudes have a different element to their game. There's bigger guys with quick feet being able to be agile and make cuts, and they're getting their line reads pretty good at the point of attack too. So it's going to be a tough decision who's going to be that guy.
And here's the biggest thing that sticks out to me about those carries is more who was not there. This team really likes Dontrell Hilliard, I think. Yeah. Watching him in practice in 7-on-7, Mike Keith with us on the Zone yesterday said that he thinks Dontrell Hilliard might be the best third down back the Titans have had in 20 years. I think it shows the vote of confidence that Mike Vrabel and this coaching staff has in him that they don't really need to see anything else from him today and throughout the preseason.
Yeah, and he's kind of been forthright with all that. He's like, I'm playing Malik because I need to see him. We want to see the reps has been communicated. It's kind of that same philosophy. As a guy you're very familiar with, now I need to see who's coming after him, who's the next guy after that. And that's where the interesting competition will be when it gets down to it next week.
615-737-1045, the number if you want to join the conversation tonight. Receiving-wise, looking at the other offensive stats, 5 targets for Reggie Robertson was the only receiver that was targeted more than Kyle Phillips tonight. More on Robertson and some of those second and third teamers kind of as we go, but Kyle Phillips.
I was about to say, we haven't even spoke about him yet.
Might have just taken over the punt return job in the second preseason game of the year.
I would say, in all that conversation that we've had up until this point, a segment and all, This is the first time we mentioned this cat, and this guy just popped off the page.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a pleasant surprise to see him be so effective in the punt return game, planting that foot and go. Wasn't a whole lot of dancing. He was just being very efficient and going north and south and making plays, man, and making people miss, which is another element. And it's going to be hard to keep that man off the field. And then you find out, especially with role receivers, if you can find your knack, whether it be moving chains on third and short, being a shifty guy, just having something that people can latch onto, you can play in this league for a long time.
How rare is that for a rookie wide receiver to have that level of confidence? Because Kyle Phillips, to me, looks very confident in what he wants to do. There's
comfortable.
There's not a lot of hesitation on what he knows his role is within the framework of this offense right now.
Yeah, and that goes a long way. You know, you don't have that negativity or that guessing, whatever you have in your mindset. He's just playing happy, free. He's just being aggressive. There's a comfortableness that he has within the scheme and what they're asking him to do that he feels very confident in. Now, you know, it remains to be seen when you get out there and that Sunday heat, that 12 noon game, and everybody's in there and it's a different feel. But that remains to be seen as well. So we'll see what he does. But I loved the plays that he's making specifically in the return game. That's going to be huge for him.
Yeah, and 3 returns for 77 yards, including a 35-yard return. He averages 25.7 yards per those 3 punt returns.
Yeah,
That'll play.
That'll play.
It's pretty good.
I think every coach would love you to flip the field. That's 2.5 first downs right there.
That's not bad.
That's not bad.
It was funny, Mike Vrabel talking with Voice of the Titans, Mike Keith, on Titans radio postgame coverage. Mike Keith asked him point blank, did he just win the punt return job tonight? And Mike, in his programmed answer of obviously nothing is decided, starts saying, well, it's not time to make those decisions yet. And then it was funny. It's like he then switched course quickly and said, but right now he's our starter until somebody takes it from him. It's like, okay, well, sure. He's the starter then. He won the job. Congratulations to Kyle Phillips.
I think he's going to be around for a while.
But I think that the chemistry with him and Malik Willis is interesting right now because we have seen Kyle Phillips get more reps with Ryan Tannehill in practice, a guy that has quickly risen to the top of the depth chart at that position and is getting a lot of looks at slot. Some of those timing routes with Malik Willis just weren't really quite there. It kind of makes sense when you consider that Kyle Phillips is a first-team receiver right now for the Titans, and Malik Willis is battling for the secondary job.
And there's still some uncertainty where to go with the football at times. And like you said, the reps, getting that familiarity with receivers sometimes, it could take a little bit. But, I think the good news for the Titans and Titans fans, you can think Phillips is going to be a guy that's going to be moving that chains guy that if you got that short yards and you got a defense on their heels, it's just one of those guess them downs. Is the running back going to get the ball, or you want to go ahead and dump it off to a guy like Kyle Phillips that can turn a 3-yard play into a big play too?
104.5 The Zone TV is where you can watch the show tonight as well. We're live on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitter. You can send us a question there in the comments section on 104.5 The Zone TV on YouTube, where Chad is chiming in with a question, asking, what do you guys think about the safety situation? After the first two, I think Kalu and Gillespie looked good tonight.
Kalu.
Not sure how many they keep. Kalu was popping up everywhere.
Yeah, again, when you said a name, there's another guy I failed to mention earlier. Yeah. And that's another guy that kind of popped out the page, making a big play. Joshua
Kalu has been a special teams ace, of course, for the Tennessee Titans, going back to 2019. Blocks Harrison Butker's kick in a dramatic win for the Titans over the Kansas City Chiefs here in Nissan Stadium. And then also has a kick returned for a touchdown against the Indianapolis Colts in 2019 in Lucas Oil Stadium. A guy that comes back. Look, I think that the way that Theo Jackson has missed practice this week, out with an injury over the course of these past couple of days, Titans have brought in Gillespie from Las Vegas. Joshua Kalu is back in the mix. Adrian Colbert is another guy who had a good pass breakup late in the game tonight and was in and around the line of scrimmage making some plays. That seems to be a pretty open competition, and Titans have been really banged up there behind Amani Hooker, well, really including Amani Hooker, and behind Kevin Byard there.
Yeah, and that's if you want to have the guys come after them, last thing you need is another guy that's having health issues. That's the unfortunate part about the business as well, because you want to lose the battle on the field as opposed to getting an opportunity to be with a franchise. Now, there's other opportunities, and you hope you're one of those guys, but you do not want health to be the reason why I didn't make the roster.
Right.
And that's unfortunate right now for that, because that's not the battle you want to see at this point in juncture in somebody's career.
Joshua Kalu was ruled out in the second half of this game with a groin injury. He had been playing really well, so really hope for him. That does not cost him too much time and does not cost him a spot on this team. Because, Kevin, the familiarity of knowing the system, knowing the terminology, and just having comfort within the city of Nashville, within the Tennessee Titans organization, certainly means a lot for that guy and for anybody that's in a similar position.
Yeah, man, you said it, comfort. Everybody wants to feel like they want it, feel like they're needed, feel like you're in a good position, not just for your professional life, but for your family. And that's what like you mentioned, man, what Nashville feels to him. He's carved himself a home here. So you hate to see anything going any other way with him.
Absolutely. 615-737-1045 if you want to jump in on the conversation tonight. Talking about the Titans that impressed us the most on both sides of the football. Zach chiming in on our YouTube chat on 1045 The Zone TV asking, why is Woodside still around?
Oh, wow.
A little harsh. And also asks, why does Burks not get more looks? Just the one catch for him tonight.
Yeah. He's, 3 targets so far in the preseason, maybe 4?
That is 3 targets tonight, and I believe just the one
last week
against Baltimore.
So 4 targets total.
Yeah.
You'd like to see a little bit more out of him. I think especially with the guy that he's presumably replacing, and A.J. Brown was so dynamic and so fast, and people just want to see that quickly. And this guy might be developing a little bit slower than A.J. Brown. It doesn't mean he's not going to be productive. So, we want to see a splash, a big play, some evidence of, okay, he's ready for the limelight. And I think that's what the fans are, when you hear a comment like that, that's kind of where they're going with it.
To the question about Logan Woodside and why he is still here, why he is still being evaluated by this Titans coaching staff and front office. Look, the Titans need to evaluate what they have at wide receiver.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, they have to have a quarterback that is willing to stand in the pocket, put his foot in the ground, and make a throw. Mm-hmm. And Malik Willis is still taking steps to learn how to do that. We saw him do that from the first and second quarter, but I think one of the biggest reasons why Logan Woodside is around is he has the familiarity and the resources to help you see what you have at wide receiver.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you that. You take that part.
Okay.
What the fans are saying, though, is he the guy that can move this franchise forward, though?
Right. Sure.
And that's what they want to see about Malik. There's a familiarity about him that reminds him of somebody of old.
That's right.
And, it's hard not to look at him and say that. So is that fair to Logan? Probably not.
Right.
Not at all. But again, you're losing the battle or winning the battle on the field with those two. And I want to see what they decide to do next week. Is it an even 50 split? Still going to lean heavier on Malik as far as reps because you still got some more you want to see? Is it truly a man-to-man battle, or are they just plan on keeping them both and just want to see how far along Malik has come? So we'll see what they do next week.
The interesting thing about this is that the game plan and the process for Malik Willis now in the preseason is going to be a lot different if he is called upon in an emergency situation in the regular season.
Yeah, as your Braves.
Yeah, that's right. You're going to get used to me watching,
well, you're trying to act like
baseball.
You're trying to act like you're not excited that they just won.
I know. I am, very much so.
There you go.
But, yes, to that point, there are good quarterbacks, good young quarterbacks that are mobile guys who have had a small amount of success or some success being a first read or run quarterback. Okay. I mean, Lamar Jackson at the beginning of his career as a Baltimore Raven was bailing pretty quickly.
Oh, tuck and run.
Absolutely.
He's a different type of animal in that field, too, now, too. That speed is,
Yeah.
The quarterback being that fast. So, I don't think Harbaugh was tripping off him doing that too much.
Right. But I think the interesting part is now that it seems like you only really have one more week to install as much of the Ryan Tannehill-led offense as you can for Malik Willis. Because once you get in the regular season, How much do you think he is learning what Ryan Tannehill is trying to learn, what that game plan is?
Yeah.
Or how much do you think they're trying to focus him in on one read, plays that you really like, or you're tucking and running and trying to survive?
Well, it's two things. One, you have a staple of plays that you have that's kind of stables in the playbook. That's what every quarterback, every receiver, every running back has, and you're going to have a staple of plays that we do, and this is how we do them, and these are formations, so to speak. And I say that, and there's variations off that. However, if you start getting too far gone into the unknown and what ifs, like he has a skill set, we can do some more zone reading than we haven't done in the past. Do you alter your playbook enough for a young player without really focusing in on and growing from the stables?
Right.
And I think that's right now. Let's get on these, and then we can build on his skill set for later, because he adds a different element than maybe Tannehill does right now, that maybe we can say, okay, you have to learn these. You got to understand these bases. But if we're going to progress to the next level, learn these, and then we can start adding stuff that you can do specifically. And that's how offenses grow.
Well, I'll tell you what, 4 quarterbacks played tonight between Tennessee and Tampa Bay, and Malik Willis had the best quarterback rating of all of them. Kyle Trask, the former Florida Gator for Tampa Bay tonight, 11 of 24, 105, 4 sacks, and an interception. And then Blaine Gabbert was just 3 for 5 for 13 yards. How much do you feel like we could really judge the Titans defense this week with TB12 not really there?
Well, I'd say the statistics of this, they made it hard for him completions.
Yeah.
Well under 50% completion percentage. Got an interception. I'm talking about Trask because he got the majority of the reps. So you look at the pressure that they were putting on the quarterbacks tonight, active around the football, got drives and made them get off the field when they needed to get the ball back to the offense to run out the clock. I mean, the defense showed up today, and there was a lot of specific guys individually that, making it very hard to cut them, as we talked about, Danny and some of these other guys that are in battles, presumably, and who's going to take that position. And like we talked about earlier, you at least want somebody or one competition be on the field. And right now, to me, the couple of them are being handled on the field, and one of them is the right tackle, and the other one is kind of the outside linebackers.
You're absolutely right. 615-737-1045, the number if you want to jump in tonight. For the Bucs on the ground, 10 carries, 54 yards for former Pearl Cone Firebird running back Keyshawn Vaughn. Also a former Vanderbilt Commodore. Leonard Fournette gets 5 carries for 20 yards. Charles Davis mentioned this on the Titans TV network broadcast, saying, I bet Mike Vrabel, I bet that this Tennessee Titans coaching staff liked the fact that they got to see Leonard Fournette for at least a couple of drives and simulate having a really physical running back running full steam ahead at him.
Nothing replaces experience, and you get to feel that weight lean on you a little bit differently, a little bit power, because you're thudding in most practice instances, when you're at practice competing, you're just thudding. You're not, very rarely do we go down to the ground protecting guys' legs, things of that nature. So they've got a good feel for, like you said, a powerful physical runner, and that was some good game action, warranted game action. I'm sure they all been aching for.
Absolutely. 615-737-1045, the number here tonight on Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. Let's go to the phones where Rhett Bryan is checking in with us, the executive producer of Titans Radio, putting in a little bit of after-hours work with us here on a Saturday night. What's going on, Rhett?
How are we doing, gentlemen? How's Dr. Smooth over there?
How you doing, man?
I'm good. Hey, I heard you guys talking about Traylon Burks a minute ago when I was pulling out of the stadium. And you're right about, kind of where he is and trying to replace A.J. Brown. But people forget now, when A.J. Brown came in, if you'll remember, he had a hamstring, like the second practice of training camp. Did not practice again until the regular season. And he really didn't have a breakout game till week 4 when they were in Atlanta. We had the 2-touchdown game right there. So now, Titans fans may not have that good a memory, and they certainly don't have that level of patience. But, that's what we got to remember and remind ourselves when we're talking about that guy going forward. But he'll get his work. But, man, there's a lot of good young talent in this thing, and they flashed it tonight.
Yeah.
They absolutely did.
I agree. And if you want to have depth and a quality team that can go a long ways, you got to have them guys that add that depth. That drop off from that 1 to 2 is very insignificant. And you see got a lot of good action from some of these young players that can add that depth and make this a championship caliber roster. And that's the game plan.
Reggie Robertson had a good week. He's the undrafted receiver from SMU. He showed it again tonight. Kyle Phillips, Coach Vrabel told us post-game when Mike asked him, he basically has a gig, surprise, surprise.
Yeah, we mentioned that as well. That was great.
He can return. He can do it all. But I think who I was impressed with is Rashad Weaver.
Yeah.
After missing most of his rookie year, that dude is dialed in. He made some big plays, matching hands with a quarterback to make the interception that Joe Jones returned 36 yards to set up the Malik Willis touchdown. He had a sack. He had a fumble recovery. He's all over the place, and he's been like that all week against Tampa.
He has. And, Red, I heard you say this post-game, Coach Dave McGinnis as well. The guy fits the DNA of what a Tennessee Titan is on the offensive side of the ball, on the defensive side of the ball. It just seems like a perfect cultural fit in the mentality, the intangibles, and the skill set of Rashad Weaver. Picking right up where he left off after a major injury last year. That is not an easy thing to do, and he's doing it with flying colors right now.
Yeah, it was evident to me, it might have been the third practice of training camp, whatever it was, the day that it rained and they went inside to the bubble. And I talked to him there after practice was over, and we talked about the preseason last year. He said, listen, everybody talking about me having a good preseason. He said, I looked at that film, and it was garbage. He said, I didn't know what I was doing. And you could tell he knows what he's doing now, and he's putting his foot on the gas and applying the smarts to what he's learned in all of this.
Absolutely is. Rhett Bryan hanging out with us here after hours on Titans Talkback presented by League Company. So we're up against a break, Rhett, but I got to ask you one more before we let you go. And appreciate you checking in with us, man. Chance Campbell and Dr. Gibby on defense. I know the inside linebackers have been a question mark with Monty Rice sidelined throughout training camp, but really like the effort from those two guys in that unit right now.
Well, and they got kind of thrown into the fire in Baltimore last week. I talked to their inside linebackers coach, Bobby King, who was complimentary of both of them. Now, Chance Campbell, he wore the green dot as the middle linebacker last week for the first time. So he took that and applied it through practice this week. Dr. Jack Gibbons continues he was the leading tackler again tonight. I think he had 5 tackles. We'll see what the coach's film shows up with. But the thing was, those guys, tonight, they really had a choice to play. There was only 3 active linebackers up. Everybody else was down.
Yeah.
So it was those 2 and Joe Jones, and so they got the lion's share of the reps, which is great because that's what they need in this. But those guys, for an undrafted and for a guy that was a 6th or 7th rounder, what Chance Campbell was from Ole Miss, hey, that's good stuff so far.
Absolutely is, and good stuff as always from the man, the myth, the legend himself, Rhett Bryan.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you showing us.
You're on Post Game Titans Radio. You're calling us on the drive home. We appreciate you checking in, man. Always good to hear from you.
Hey, and let me say one other thing before I know you got to go to break. Ryan Stonehouse and this punting competition, it's for real. And they wanted to see him hold tonight, and he did a good job. I mean, Randy Bullock had 2 field goals, and he had the PAT. There's nothing that got sideways, and then he had the 68 to 53-yard punt. Listen, this is going to be very, very interesting going into next Saturday night.
Rhett, you were reading my mind and taking the words right out of my mouth because that was my tease going into the break. So thank you for helping me do that.
Hey, I'm just here to help. Always have a good rest of the show. Don't get your fingers too far away from that dump button in case somebody's had a little too much.
That's
there
right.
You go.
That's right. Thank you so much, Rhett. There's Rhett Bryan.
Appreciate you, man.
Titans Radio hanging out with us post-game. Titans Talkback presented by League Company. Let's talk about these punters. I tell you what, Ryan Stonehouse has got a cannon of a right leg. We'll do that coming up next. It's Titans Talkback, 104.5 The Zone. Titans Talk Back on this Saturday night. It is brought to you by Lee Company. The Titans trust their home stadium to Lee Company to tackle their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical problems. They can protect your home, too. Your next play, visit LeeCompany.com. Lee Company, all you need. The phone number is 615-737-1045. If you want to react to something that you saw or a player that caught your eye, maybe in a good way, maybe in a bad way, in the Tennessee Titans 13-3 win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Will Boling and Kevin Dyson here with you until midnight right here on The Zone. Let's talk punters, Kevin.
Woo.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because one of them has I think a punt that's going to land in 3 to 5 business days. Ryan Stonehouse tonight, a 68-yard punt that went through the back of the end zone and really was probably closer to an 80-yard punt.
Yeah. So we're having a conversation about a punting competition.
Yes, we are.
A punting competition.
We're kicking it on a Saturday night.
Wow.
A little bit differently than those down the road in Midtown, but we're kicking it in a different way.
But that's an interesting turn of events.
Yeah.
I mean, Kern is a consummate pro bowler, all-pro, consistency, loyalty. It'd be hard for me to hear that is a competition.
Yeah.
And the kid, he looked good. One thing I wanted to see was his touch, and he had a moment. He provided that. He obviously has a strong leg, and even though he made a mistake with the dropped snap, he made up for it, making a big play. He kept it cool and extended the drive. So to hear that it's a competition, and it has been, that's interesting to me.
It's kind of funny, too, because Ryan Stonehouse is also now competing for the third running back after his first down run on 4th down.
Well, I don't know because he can't catch.
That's unfair. It was funny. Craig Ackerman was screaming something at him as he's rounding the corner, and I couldn't tell if he was yelling at him to just kick it or to run for his life. But either way, he was yelling something at him.
I think he erred aside of caution and kicked that mug. But
I think so.
It's one of those when you shoot that three, you shouldn't shoot.
I was going to say it's like
Yeah.
the forward that shoots a three. No. Yeah, you made it. Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. That's was one of those moments right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, 615-737-1045, the number. Stonehouse, 4 punts, covers 188 yards, long of 68 that we mentioned. 2 touchbacks. He's got all the power, doesn't have the accuracy quite yet that Brett Kern does. Kern had 2 punts, both of them down inside the 20. 2 out of 4 from Stonehouse were down inside the 20. And Stonehouse, like Rhett Bryan mentioned about 10 minutes ago, was also holding for Randy Bullock, and there were no issues there.
Yeah, and that's going to be crucial because that's usually what happens is your punters, your holder, they spend a lot of time together and they get familiarity. So obviously, if it is a true competition and true evaluation, you want to see how he holds for the guy who's going to be kicking field goals for him.
615-737-1045, the number. We go to Zach calling from North Carolina tonight. What's going on, Zach?
Hey, how you guys doing?
All right, man.
Hey, yeah, man. So I put in that comment about the whole Woodside issue. Yeah, it's a little harsh, but at the same time, watching the 2 preseason games, when I see Malik in there, I see a touchdown, and when I see Woodside in there, I see interceptions. So I don't know, maybe a hot take, but that's just what I see from maybe a casual fan. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, thanks for the call, Zach. I think the evaluation process for me doesn't just start with his preseason. It's probably the difference.
And that was exactly what I was going to say. Well, this is a long game evaluation. Like, they need to see the immediate in Malik because they've had evaluation to extended period of time with Woodside. I think some of these turnovers may be him trying to press and make plays, as we saw last week. One was miscommunication, one he was trying to force a throw and got a tip ball and ended up being a pick. But I feel like with a competition like this, one, it's going to make whoever stands out the better person. And competition makes us all better, right? But at the end of the day, I think over an evaluation standpoint, they've seen Logan for an extended period of time. So you see this nod towards Malik because you just don't know yet because you see the flashes. And so I think for the fans, and I may be wrong on this, but just for the fans, it's like, man, just cut those ties and is grow this young guy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It is interesting how, and we appreciate the call, Zach, 615-737-1045, the number if you want to join in tonight. It is interesting, the evaluation process and how one mistake for one guy is viewed as, another step in the maturation process. Yeah. And then his mistake for the other guy is, get this guy out of here.
Yeah, exactly. One's growing pains, the other is he should know better already. You know what I mean? Not that he can't make a mistake too. And think about it. He's in a competition for his livelihood at this point. You know, not to say he won't be picked up if he was cut, either one of them, right? So if it's one of those things where this is for a job, and to say there's not some pressure to it, some things like that, maybe he's playing with it too much freedom, too much relaxation, and forcing throws and things of that nature, where he's not trying to exude that opposite. You know, so it's tough out there, man. But to what Vrabel's saying, man, you got to see what the young guy can do.
I'll tell you what the difference is, though, and the reason why Titans fans will certainly have more grace for the newest quarterback that's in the system in Malik Willis. When he puts his foot in the ground and zips it, he's zipping it.
Yeah.
There's some velo on that thing. We're talking about baseball. There's some velocity on those footballs, and specifically the touchdown throw to Chigakonkwo, a similar look to a touchdown that he had in joint practices against Tampa this week. The arm talent's there. You need him to be as confident with where the football is going.
That's it.
As he is how fast he's throwing.
Yeah. And the different types of throws. You know,
right.
If you have a fastball, you definitely have to have that changeup, as we use pitching terms.
Yeah, that's right.
And you know, he's shown he has a fastball, and as we were talking about the punter, you got to have that changeup, and Kern has that changeup as far as being able to place footballs and get guys in bad situations. And similar, same thing with the quarterbacks. You know, you got to be able to have that changeup, that nice touch ball, the fade ball, the one where you do fit it into a tight window. You got to have all kind of throws in your repertoire, and that's what remains to be seen with him right now.
615-737-1045, the number if you want to jump in tonight. So I want to ask you this, talking about Brett Kern, talking about Logan Woodside, and guys who are in battles who perhaps haven't been in the past. How do you deal with that within a locker room? Because I imagine you've got consistent voices. You've got guys that have always been leaders and kind of cornerstones of the dynamic that's going on in that locker room that are all of a sudden kind of battling a little bit. Is that weird?
It's the unspoken elephant in the room.
Yeah.
You know, I think you recognize something's going on, and you don't necessarily have an allegiance one way or the other. You may have an opinion one way or the other, but you don't necessarily have an allegiance. You just want whoever they decide to go with to be somebody that can help you win at the end of the day.
Right.
And if they feel like this guy's the one to help you with, most guys can tolerate it, whether it be personal feelings in it or not, because we spent a lot of time together, we hung out, whatever. But at the end of the day, it is about winning championships and having a career at playing this kid's game.
It's interesting, too, talking about Brett Kern, and I think we can talk about this within the context of the right tackle competition as well. It's important to see how somebody responds to being in a competition.
Yeah.
Right? Logan Woodside has battled and has always had the upper hand on Deshaun Kaiser, on Trevor Siemian, on Matt Barkley, on guys that have been within that room. And I think he's maybe feeling the pressure a little bit, right?
And some of them with big names, the guys that we're familiar with, like Matt Barkley for sure, you know, and Trent, about to misplace this man's name right now.
Trevor Siemian?
Trevor Siemian, thank you.
Yeah, I got you.
And that guy, thank you, my man. But those guys like that, I got too excited.
Yeah.
So you got guys like that who have established themselves in the league and have familiarity as far as name recognition, and he was being able to walk off all of those guys. He's been able to continue and be the number two guy. So now it's interesting to see him in a competition where he's kind of established himself as a pretty solid backup in the National Football League.
615-737-1045, the number to join in tonight. And we go to Kenny in Clarksville up next, wanting to talk about Malik Willis. What's going on, Kenny? Hey, Kenny, you're on.
Hey, guys.
Hey, man.
How are you?
Good. So I wanted to talk about some of Malik's throws. It seems like to me he was throwing a fastball on some of his throws. It just seemed a little bit too hard, if you will. And, I think some of them were catchable by the receivers, but again, just wanted to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, thanks, Kenny. We touched on it a little bit, too, and you kind of brought this up, but that's something that I think Malik Willis is going to have to develop and continue to mature in and just have a little more touch.
Yeah, touch and placement. That'll get you a long way as a quarterback in the National Football League. You know, there's a lot of guys that have great arm strength, and people would say Tom Brady wasn't that guy, right?
Sure.
But as far as placement and touch and different spins and things like that. He's one of the best, if not the best, to ever do it, right? And that still is the conversation. But it's more than just be able to throw it far. As people talk about the quarterback evaluation, like a lot of quarterbacks can throw it 80 yards or 75, but it's more to it. And like the caller was saying, what is his other pitch? What are some of his other skill sets as far as the relation to spinning the football?
How much of a difference can you tell between a quarterback that, as a wide receiver, is putting the ball in a position for you to immediately tuck it and be at full speed, and somebody that's making you work a little bit? Like, how big of a difference does that make from the wide receiver perspective?
Significant. It's so significant that they've come up with this frame or this phrase of catch radius.
Yeah.
That's how significant that placement is. Because you got guys that can put it in a position where you are going to catch that ball. You're like only one that can catch the ball or it's going out of bounds, and they're consistently doing that, as opposed to guys that make you show off how well you have or how sprawled out your catch radius is. And so that is a big difference, and you definitely notice that.
615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. Talking QBs, Logan Woodside, Malik Willis, both getting pretty much, again, an even split tonight. Malik Willis, 7 for 17, 80 yards, taking 3 sacks. He has the 1 touchdown to Chiga Okonkwo. Logan Woodside, 7 for 11, 56 yards, but interception number 3 of the preseason tonight in a Tennessee Titans 13-3 win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let's go back to the phones where Steven is calling all the way from Wyoming tonight. What's going on, Steven?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, man.
Tonight, what I watched, and even last week with Malik and Woodside, I don't see much of a difference between the two, and I feel like it would be a travesty if we kept both of them on the roster. Now, obviously, Malik has potential, and I think he's better than Woodside already with lacking experience, but you could put Woodside on the practice squad and not have to worry about losing him. You know what I mean? I don't think we should carry 3 quarterbacks on the roster like that to potentially lose a spot for someone like Chance Campbell. Like, I really like that kid. He looks good. And then there's also some new safeties that they added in, that 6-year player that kept making breakups today. You might lose a guy like that if we keep a Woodside, who's not really even going to help you. Like, they're probably going to ride the bench for the whole season.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Steven. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a good point, and I think the amount of time that Logan Woodside has spent within this franchise, I think you'd probably like your chances to keep him around on the practice squad.
Yeah, and I appreciate the conversation as well, because it's definitely worth having. I mean, You don't draft a guy like Malik and say he's going to be sitting on the sidelines for his whole career. I think he has potential to be a guy who can play for a long, extended period of time and be a starter in this National Football League. So it's definitely worth the conversation. But if for a team that we feel like is on the cusp still, not on the decline, they're still on the cusp of being able to get to this big show, which is the Super Bowl. What do you have to have after your starting quarterback? You had to have somebody that's reliable, consistent, and you know what you have. And I think that is why Titans are still evaluating and they haven't made a decision yet, because they still got to see what they want to see out of Malik.
Titans Talkback presented by League Company here on 104.5 The Zone. League Company, all you need. Visit them online at leaguecompany.com. The phone number again is 615-737-1045. Our Kroger Sacks for Cash tonight. Tonight's the Titans have 4 sacks, adding $400 for the season. Kroger's donation to Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee now stands at $600, courtesy of those 4 sacks tonight. Every time the Titans sack the opposing team's quarterback, Kroger donates $100 to Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee from Kroger. Through its Zero Hunger, Zero Waste plan, Kroger is committed to ending hunger in our communities. What an effort by the Titans defense. Spent a lot of time talking about the quarterbacks, and rightfully so. We mentioned Rashad Weaver. We mentioned David Aneni. It's nice, Kevin, to see that the aggressiveness and the personality of the 2s and the 3s looked a little bit more like the 1s tonight for the Titans defense.
And that bodes well, like we talked about before the break there, that you talk about guys adding depth and that drop-off being very minimal. And that's what you want to see. You want to see production and something where, nobody's expecting you to be a 12-sack guy if you're a 2-sack guy. But when you're out there, you're relentless and you're providing that same kind of different feel for that tackle, whoever it is. And I'm just using outside linebackers, DNs as an example. But right now, you got guys that are putting it on the field, and that competition is on the field, and that makes for a good roster when your guys are competing like this, and he has that depth, that's quality depth.
Absolutely do. Shakur Brown, Joshua Kalu, Jack Gibbons, the three guys with 5 tackles tonight to lead the way.
Yeah.
The sacks courtesy of David Anetti, who now has 3 in preseason. Ola Adeni, who also added a tackle for loss. Deshaun Hand, former number 1 overall player at a high school, Alabama Crimson Tide defensive lineman in his college days, adds a sack himself. And Rashad Weaver, who we mentioned. Look, I think Rashad Weaver plays a really big role in this football team this year.
You think so? I mean, you put him in there, you don't feel like there's a drop-off on the pass rush right now. He's getting after the quarterback right now. I mean, he's applying pressure. He's been solid in the run game. He's doing a lot of big things right now.
I think oftentimes for a rookie, the role for players like that is so simple. And for an edge rusher, the moves are so simple. It's, hey, let's master one thing that you feel like on a third down you can get around a left tackle and get to the quarterback with. I assume at a wide receiver position, it's, hey, let's really master a couple of routes, a couple of looks that we want you to do as a rookie and start piecing things together and adding more things. Despite the injury last season, I think Rashad Weaver has already taken a step forward and adding a change-up, because that's the case for edge rushers just like it is for quarterbacks and every other position.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. You got to have something, that you put on tape that fears you, make them fear you. And then you got that one you counter after that. It's that Nolan Ryan, I throw that 105-mile fastball.
That's right.
And then that changeup looks like it's coming at you, and it's only 68, 75. So it just looks different. And I think that's that key for guys. They want to see that maturation, that growth. Are you developing your other skill sets? We know what you can do right here. Are you still continuing to grow in some other facets of the game, but get really good, like you mentioned, Will, get really good at that one thing and then developing skills right after that. So, these guys, you see a growth, man. It's fun to watch them. You can see the wheels are starting to connect too, and everybody's going that same direction. The defense looked aggressive, and they looked certain. They knew where they were supposed to be, and they were making plays. So, it makes for a pretty solid defense going forward.
On that defense too, I think we saw a lot of missed tackles. We saw a lot of poor pursuit angles from the Titans defense in Baltimore, specifically from some of those young defensive backs. And that group has been a little bit banged up over the past week.
Yeah.
I think you could tell that was a coaching point. That was something that they wanted to focus on, and just wrapping up and pursuing the football. And they didn't just do that. They forced a couple fumbles too.
Yeah. And I talked about being a student of the game earlier in the week, and coaches are exactly that. They study, they film, and they look at things the way to get better from week to week, season to season. And when you look at from game to game standpoint, you look at evidence of what we lost yardage in, where do we lose downs, where do we lose possessions, those things, where can we get those things back? Effort might have been the one thing. If somebody would have gotten off the ground and got to that play, stopped them from getting a first down. As you talked about, pursuit angle could have been a big thing where you could have stopped somebody from scoring or getting a first down. So, it's good for coaches to evaluate, and when they get out there, they got an action plan, they put it together, and you see the results, man. Today, Titans were aggressive. They was all around the football. They got stops when they needed to, got 4 sacks again tonight. So it's been good to watch the defense grow, especially the young guys.
And they were forcing fumbles in different areas of the game. Josh Kalu in the secondary, Lonnie Johnson as well in the secondary. You had Ola Adeni, David Anetti on the strip sack. That's 4 sacks and 4 forced fumbles tonight. That what we said earlier about Kyle Phillips and his return yardage, that'll play. That'll play. Four forced fumbles is going to play.
That's going to play. Because you're on tape, you keep continuing to make plays. It's going to give you every opportunity. And then if you start making plays and other assets of the game, as we mentioned, special teams, that becomes something that people consider for you too. What can you do there? It's going to be a very good season for this young man.
615-737-1045 is the number tonight if you want to join in on the conversation. What'd you see out of Caleb Farley tonight? Some solid. Good, some bad for him.
Some good, some bad. Solid, man. And just similar to his week, as he mentioned, he had a one-off day, and he comes right back, responded well. He kind of did the same thing again today. He he responded well. His coverage was solid, and at times he wasn't there. I mean, and that's going to come. I think he's still getting comfortable with the injury, still get comfortable with the scheme and philosophy. But you see the growth, you see the wheels turning as well. He's another guy he continue to puts in the work to get better in the film study and on the field.
I think for him, part of the struggle and part of the adaptation for him has been those deep routes. We saw Scotty Miller get past him, had a step on him, ball was overthrown by Kyle Trask. It ultimately was incomplete down the sideline. But if that throws on the money, we might be talking about Caleb Farley giving up a 70, 80-yard touchdown tonight.
Yeah.
Ultimately didn't happen, but I did like the pass breakup he had on about a 15-yard comeback route. I believe that was on a third down in the first half, too. Those routes, he's so long.
Yeah.
Former wide receiver, he's long, lanky guy that we mentioned that last week, kind of being a little bit of an eraser for him. Just his athleticism, his length. And I think at this point, that's something that has been a strength for him thus far through preseason.
Oh, absolutely. Being a long, rangier corner, you can get your hands on people a little bit more than the average size corner. But these guys right now, his skill set, he's getting a lot better. I want to see him continue to make more attempts at the line of scrimmage, being more aggressive at the line of scrimmage at times, just changing changing up his technique as well. Just get something a little bit different.
615-737-1045 is the number. When we come back, Kevin Dyson and I, we're going to both pick our star of the night. We've mentioned a lot of names. We're going to narrow it down to one for each of us who was the best performer tonight. And you can join us as well and give yours at 615-737-1045. Hand out a game ball to somebody wearing the two-tone blue tonight in Nissan Stadium, whether it's on the offensive side, the defensive side. Maybe it's the punter, who's now maybe a running back candidate in Ryan Stonehouse with a 68-yard punt as well. 615-737-1045. It's Titans Talkback, presented by Elite Company. One more hour coming up next on 1045 The Zone. Titans Talkback presented by League Company. It is 11:01 in America's Music City, and we are not tired yet right here on 104.5 The Zone. Alongside Kevin Dyson, I'm Will Boling. Brett Batchelor hitting all the right buttons tonight for us. You can give him a call, ask us a question, talk some Titans at 615-737-1045. Should I go make that pot of coffee? Over
You might have to.
break room. Oh, man. No, good stuff. Great to be back in Nissan Stadium, like we said. Thought it was a good crowd tonight in Nissan Stadium, too.
You know, considering they've been familiar with the opponent because all week they've been talking about them and practicing with them, and people still showed up, man. It was a good game, good atmosphere. It's always good to play in front of your home fans, and the Titans had a good showing.
How many joint practices were you a part of in your NFL career?
Just two. Once with the Rams right after the Super Bowl, then another year with the Colts.
I'm always curious just the dynamic of what that's like, because day one of practice this week was pretty low-key.
Yeah.
You know, nothing too crazy going on, pretty even between the two teams. And then the second day was, little scuffles, 3 or 4 of them. Jeffrey Simmons out here yelling at people, and him and Leonard Fournette fighting at the end of practice, and it's like they kind of got it all out of their system, and then just decided, okay, let's just go play
competition,
a preseason game.
Man. Competition brings it out. Nobody likes to lose, man.
And a lot of those guys that were in those scuffles, no fights. People, reporters saying, they're fights after practice. No, what happened in Carolina and New England, that was a fight after practice. There were no fights.
No.
At Titans in Tampa training camp.
Just some good, positive conversation. That's all that was.
We were talking about that last week, and you were saying, good, bring it on, right?
Yeah, you always kind of want to have as much game so you get that feel for what the play call is going to be, but the competition just brings it out in you. You want to get a feel for a guy. What can I use on him that will work in the National Football League, so to speak? And it's always good to go get somebody else in a different color because, you practice with each other, you get familiar with one another's moves and things of nature. It can get a little bit mundane, but going to get somebody else every day, man, that could be fun because you don't want to look bad. You don't want to be that guy.
Right. I feel like you can sort of see the finish line, so to speak, at this point if you're fighting for a roster spot. This last week of preseason game prep, I imagine there's a little bit of extra energy going into, the meeting room tomorrow and the practice field on Monday.
Well, you still, got that whatchamacallit coming at the few days.
Yeah.
And I'm saying whatchamacallit, but I know them cuts and people that you talked about earlier, that elephant in the room, it can be something nobody's trying to think about, but it is happening. Who's going to be here with us? Who can I count on any given Sunday and things of that nature. So it's still got a lot to be determined. But, yes, as we talk about from a preparation standpoint, it starts to ramp up a little bit because it starts to become for keeps.
That's right. 615-737-1045, the number here on Titans Talkback, presented by League Company. League Company, all you need. Visit them online at leaguecompany.com. All right, so we're giving away our game balls tonight, our player of the game, to one guy. And you can do that as well with us on the phone lines at 615-737-1045 if you're up late with us on a Saturday night. I'll start with you. Who you got tonight? I'm putting you on the spot here, narrowing this down.
I'm going to go off schedule just a little bit.
Okay, that's allowed.
And I'm going to pick a guy that we hadn't really talked about just because statistically he had a pretty good day. And it's probably a guy that's, who it remains to see if he would make it on the roster. But Deshaun Hand.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, statistically.
Yeah.
He had 2 tackles, 1 solo, 1 sack, and a tackle for loss.
Yeah.
That's significant, man.
It is.
That's in the positive as far as them having negative yards, a sack, tackle for loss, things of that nature. And he's a guy that's kind of low on the radar that doesn't get a lot of airplay. So I want to give him a shout out as my player of the game. Just because I want to pick a random guy that I felt like is not getting his just due in this preseason game.
That's fair. I like it. Had the sack, had 104 tonight for the Tennessee Titans. So another guy who is battling at a very deep position. And Mike Keith has mentioned this on 104.5 The Zone the past couple of weeks. He thinks the defensive line unit is the deepest position group on this team right now.
It'd be hard to argue that.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be hard to argue, especially the way the guys are playing right now.
Another guy, not my player of the game, but just talking about the defensive line and some of the guys who flashed tonight. And I mention this because I had my eye on this player because on the Titans Network, Dan Hellie and Charles Davis mentioned him as someone who the coaching staff wanted to see more consistency from.
Yeah.
Tier Tart was really good tonight.
had a feeling he was going to go there.
Yeah, T.R. Tart was really good. A guy who really solidified that nose tackle position a season ago. A pair of tackles for him, one for loss, the one solo tackle. Really, Naquan Jones was, at this point, kind of the story of camp a season ago, the undrafted rookie from Michigan State this time last year, who ended up making this team and really splitting time with T.R. Tart at that position and on the defensive line. That's a little bit of a battle right now. You talk about DeMarcus Walker, you talk about Deshaun Hand, who's making plays too, but T.R. Tart is still raising his hand saying, guys, don't forget about me.
And like you talked about it, the depth that they have at the defense line, or guys that can get out the quarterback, stop the run, is pretty phenomenal right now. Chance Camp, another guy who's in there in the mix. So it's just it's an opportunity for a lot of guys to get known and add some depth to this Titan roster.
615-737-1045, the number tonight on Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. I'm also going to go defense for my player of the game tonight. I'm going with a guy that I've mentioned a lot. Rhett Bryan mentioned him as well. He only had one tackle and one sack, but Rashad Weaver, for me, was extremely disruptive on the defensive side of the football and helped out T.R. Tart, helped out Deshaun Hand by forcing Blaine Gabbert and Kyle Trask to step up in the pocket where the Titans' interior rush was so good tonight. I just think Rashad Weaver has a really big place in this team as that third edge rusher. And it's like coaches say, you hear people say it all the time, you can never have too many pass rushers. Just like how you can never have too many cover corners. Mike Vrabel, John Robinson mentioning that in the League Company countdown to kickoff here this afternoon with Rhett Bryan and with Mike Keith. I think the ability for Rashad Weaver to perhaps take a little bit of stress off of Harold Landry and Bud Dupree.
Yeah.
It's really important.
Yeah.
Harold Landry's played a lot of snaps these past couple of seasons and is more than just a straight-up edge rusher in what Mike Vrabel and Shane Bowen ask him to do in coverage as well. But I think Rashad Weaver, if he could take away 10% of those two guys' reps from a season ago, how much better is this unit as a whole with an extra body in there that's good?
Well, you said it in the beginning there. Just the depth that this team potentially can have. The lack of drop-off, if you will. Guys that can still be resilient and get after the quarterback, make plays, get the hands in on fumbles, causing fumbles, things like that, tip balls. That's what you're looking for, the added depth. Guys that are quality. But then on top of that, how do they cover in a kicking game? Are they able to protect in the kicking game? So there's some guys, man, that have some great film here, have been consistent. It'll be interesting to see some of the depth position, some of these guys. And we keep mentioning, you do a better job mentioning them myself, the practice squad guys.
Yeah.
We got to start considering some of those guys that may be potential on that and who's not even on this roster that they're looking at this point.
And that really is the conversation this time of year within preseason, within the next cut that goes down to 80 on Tuesday.
Yeah.
As this team gets closer to that final cut. And Dan Hellie mentioned it on the television broadcast that 32 guys that are playing right now are not going to be on this team. And you multiply 32 by 32, there is another wave of personnel decisions and practice squad additions that this team can make that they may see from Tampa while they're in town, and they may see on Arizona and say, hey, 32 over there looked pretty good. Hey, if he ends up being on the street, let's take a look at him, on the practice squad and things of that nature. It's what makes these joint practices so important.
Yep, absolutely. You see it time and time again. And these coaches have been coaches with other coaches on different staff. They have played with different coaches, different staff, so they talk to each other. They got, hey, I know you guys are looking for a receiver. This guy, we can't keep him. We have a space. You might want to take a look at him. There's conversations like that, so there's a lot of evaluation time to come. But if you want to have a guy in your practice squad, you like for it to be the guy, at least I believe, that you can develop to could potentially pull up to your active roster and add something to it. So especially with the leniency that they have now with the salary cap and the practice squad guys.
13-3, the Titans a winner tonight over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in preseason game number 2. One left against the Arizona Cardinals. We mentioned the joint practices that are coming up with them. 2 of those that will take place this week at St. Thomas Sports Park. So we've mentioned a lot of the positives in talking about the defensive side of the football. There's lots of positives to go around and lots of praise to be handed out. But we got to talk about the other side of this thing, too, because that offense was 1 for 7 on third down in the first half. To you, is there one specific negative thing that comes out of this game that stuck out above the rest?
I wouldn't say one negative, because I hate to even say it what I'm about to say, because
Sure.
you got to protect the football. At the end of the day, I hate to put that on Logan Woodside, but that's at the end of the day, that's what it is. You got to protect the football. So if that's one thing, that would be it. I would say protecting the football at all. That would be one coaching point, whether it be quarterback, running back, whoever. Protecting the football is always at the key for most of any successful offense. And then for the rest of it, it was kind of all a mixed bag. You got the competition at running back per se, the third guy-ish, maybe 3-4, depending on how many people they keep in certain positions. Or you got 5 receivers, 6 receivers now. You keeping 3 quarterbacks and getting rid of a receiver. How many tight ends? So
yeah,
it's getting down to it. And next Tuesday, getting down to 80, man, that's going to be interesting to see the direction of where this team goes.
Negative for me, the offensive line play behind the first 5.
Yeah.
It's hard to evaluate Malik Willis, Logan Woodside, and Julius Chestnut versus Hassan Haskins when that front 7 for Tampa Bay was really good tonight.
Yeah.
Really, again, we talked about this last week. You take out that longest run for Malik Willis, for Hassan Haskins, for Julius Chestnut, you're probably looking at 2.5 yards per carry.
Yeah.
Each of those 3 guys were able to kind of break one. Malik Willis for 24, Hassan Haskins for 10, and Julius Chestnut for 12. So right there, I went to Tennessee, but I'm going to try to do some quick math here. That's 46 yards on 3 carries.
Yeah.
So then you're talking about 30 carries for about 90 yards outside of your longest from your 3 leading rushers. Probably not good enough tonight from the Titans in that spot.
Yeah, but I still think there's different feels for each of those running backs and what they like to run. And then again, keep in mind, a lot of emphasis on the quarterback too, and what they can do. I saw a lot of play action pass, especially with Malik, which was good, and see him handle those situations. But as far as the running backs are concerned, it's just not spectacular to your point, but I still think you got some mileage out of them. I still think you got to see what you needed to see. Several guys, I still want to see some more being effective on third down, meaning in the passing game. That's protection, sticking your nose in, and as a receiver. So those are critical downs as well and critical moments. So who's going to be that third, fourth guy? That's going to be interesting competition as we get going next week.
Hassan Haskins and Julius Chestnut is an interesting battle, and one that I don't think we expected. Doesn't it feel like Julius Chestnut is kind of the darling of training camp this year?
Yeah, is every now and then, every preseason, I should say.
There's that one guy
that stands out. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
But there's usually a guy that say, okay, he's going to play in the National Football League for a little while. That might be him for this Titan team.
Going through the Pat Mason Kinsey was that guy a year ago. Jeremy McNichols was that guy for years.
Yeah.
Really for 2-3 years in a row was kind of that guy. David Fluellen. Was another training camp darling.
Yeah.
They seem to always happen at the running back position because obviously without Derrick Henry taking part in preseason, more eyeballs on those second, third, fourth, fifth running backs.
Yeah, and they're definitely a different style for the most part. Most of the guys have a different style that complement his, but you're not going to wear out your guy before the season gets going. So it's a great opportunity for these guys to, show their skill set. And again, I think running back specifically, if you're going to add that depth, you have to be multifaceted. So you have to be able to be solid in the run game as well as a passing game. And I'm not just talking about catching the ball as well. So, how well do these guys grade out when it comes to the coach staff and the organization?
615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in tonight on Titans Talkback presented by Lee Company. Dylan Radins plays a little bit tonight at right tackle. Nicholas Petit-Frere starts at right tackle. Also adds time at left tackle. Are you surprised to see Nicholas Petit-Frere get the first team reps at right tackle tonight?
Not at all. I think that was kind of the plan. I think it's similar. Who's going to take the bull by horns, so to speak? Who's going to be the guy to say, here, this is my spot, get out the way? If they're having this much question in a position, position grouping that is so important to be unison and be on the same page with, that you are on the same, because that communication between offensive linemen is unlike anything else on the field. Maybe secondary because you want to give a big play, but especially on the offensive line because everything we do hinges on your ability to communicate and move people. And I don't know if Radens is showing that right now.
So at this point in the process, if Nicholas Petit-Frere looks the part maybe a little bit more, and is giving you a better performance at that position right now, let's go to left guard. Aaron Brewer, for the time being, has won that job. Dylan Radens, you talked to Ramon Foster here inside the building, will tell you that he still believes that Dylan Radens is guard. Yeah. Thinks he's better suited inside. You think that's a look that this Titan staff can start to give him at left guard?
Yeah, Ramon would know.
That's right.
So, he knows. He knows body movements and position. He knows the position. So, and who played next to him. I don't have no argument with that. I think, obviously, a guy who may be more familiar with that, but you got to be able to anchor down that inside. There's a lot coming at you, your guard. Does he have that junk in his trunk to be able to do that? Is he that kind of guy? Because guard is a different life. But hey, if Ramon's saying it, man, it's got to be legit because he knows that position.
Absolutely. 615-737-1045 is the number. Mike Vrabel's given us a couple of good lines of just like old school sayings about players that sound like something your grandfather would say. My favorite one that he said so far is that Aaron Brewer is tougher than a $2 steak.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the guy is undersized, and I mean, I'm sure he is tired of hearing that he is undersized, but Mike Vrabel seems to kind of gravitate towards that kind of personality,
underdog,
doesn't
man. He does, the underdog, the guy that's got something to prove, that wants something to prove, that's here for the right reasons. And I don't mean to assume or make the assumption that guys are not there for the right reason, but this is a guy who's appreciating every opportunity he's getting at this point, and he's going to make the most of every one of those. And those kind of guys, man, that stick around longer than you expect. Yeah, they find a role on rosters real fast.
Logan Woodside in the exact same boat. Yeah, that's a Mike Vrabel guy right there.
Yeah,
it's interesting the way that evaluation process works for him versus other organizations. And we talk about culture. You talk about Rashad Weaver fitting, the DNA of what a Tennessee Titan does and how a Tennessee Titan plays. I feel like John Robinson and Mike Vrabel have invested a lot in the culture in their locker room. Yeah. And it's hard for somebody to put a tangible value on what that does or doesn't give you over the course of a season that hasn't been in that locker room. It hasn't been in an NFL locker room where the culture maybe is or isn't good. Yeah. How important is that? I know it's kind of a broad question, but it feels like something that Mike Vrabel and John Robinson are consistently, time and time again, perhaps valuing more than other organizations in this league.
Well, I'd say this. Any good team you've ever been on, organization you've ever been on, it was, I wouldn't say always peaceful, but it's just a different thing to know I got my brother's back.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And I think if you have guys that you're looking for that fit a certain mold that you have, an expectation that you have, and you band together and he's got me, I got you, and you have trust in one another, man, that's how you build teams. That's why you see some of these teams, and there might be a distraction like a contract negotiation and things like that derail it. And those are things that are unfortunate about the business of professional sports. But the other side of it is, man, it's a beautiful thing when it comes together and everybody is on that same page and shoot for the same goal. I mean, not to say that everybody have a goal to win a championship because that's the ultimate prize, but it's just different when everybody's on that train together, man.
Yeah,
man. It's a beautiful thing. Fortunate to play in a couple Super Bowls and it was similar both teams and how they were.
It's interesting, and I bring it up because it's been a conversation point when talking about the Tennessee Titans, and John Robinson has addressed it. And obviously, I remember after the Isaiah Wilson thing didn't work out for this team, and John Robinson had the quote of, I want guys who love ball.
Yeah, man.
I want guys that fit the culture, and that's a Mike Vrabel mentality.
Willing to do what it takes.
Right.
To win football games.
Right. It is so interesting because it feels like anytime the Titans, and this is even before John Robinson and Mike Vrabel, but Randy Moss, Julio Jones, right? Like some of the big names, Jadeveon Clowney, the big names and the stars that come here, it haven't really fit that, lunch pail guy mentality. And I'm using all the football cliches, but it really is a conversation we have about this franchise, that it's often those underdog guys that end up being the ones that we remember wearing, two-tone blue.
Like Cortland Finnegan's of the world, guys that kind of
no doubt
that showed up and worked his craft, got better, studied,
right,
and made a name for himself where he wasn't the conventional name.
Right, Derrick Henry. I mean, look, he was to an extent, he was a Heisman guy, but still, as a second running back who comes in and. I think you think about the toughness, and this organization wants to brand themselves as Tennessee tough, and he fits that as much as anybody.
He definitely epitomizes that.
Right.
I mean, he fits right in.
Yeah.
And he's just a unique talent, and we can have a 2-hour show just on how unique his talent is. Right. And he's blessed with some skills, man, and size that's unlike any other. But at the end of the day, it is a team sport, and in order for him to be successful, the other guys got to do their job and got to make the right decision, got to protect, got to create running lanes for him, right? You got to have hands and pads on people so he can run through the line of scrimmage and get to the secondary, where most guys don't want to have a heavy dose of tackling him in the secondary 15, 20 yards downfield. So, I want to see, hopefully this next week with Arizona coming in, very good up front, very good front seven, another competition as far as I'm assuming Raiders is probably going to get the nod again, give one opportunity,
right?
Then say one way or the other, and then one of them step up and say, I'm the guy. Now we got our offensive line, and now we can go forward.
And it is going to be a battle over these next couple of days. And with the Arizona Cardinals coming in, last time they were in Nashville, it didn't go too well for the Titans.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't go too well for number 77 either, Taylor Lewan, who has been vocal about the fact that he didn't trust the knee, he didn't feel good, he didn't want to be out on the field that day.
What's interesting?
Yeah.
When I was talking about them being a very good up front seven, I wasn't even thinking about that game here.
Yeah.
That didn't even came out.
Really?
I was thinking about them playing other games, how good they looked. I forgot about that massacre.
Oh, man.
Ooh, that was a massacre.
That's an easy one to just put out of your brain.
Yeah. Oof.
I imagine in that locker room, that's an easy one to put out of your brain.
Yeah, that's one of the ones you watch that film and then you burn it after that. You're like, man, I can't continue to remember this. Like, yeah, that was one of those ones. And now it's back up. It's still you want to compete and show them. Like, that wasn't me that day.
No, it wasn't. And look, I imagine if you're going to have a little bit more tension and a little bit more aggression on day one of joint practices, I would pick that more likely to happen against Arizona than Tampa for that exact reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going to be interesting. 615-737-1045 is the number tonight if you're hanging out with us on a Saturday night here for Titans Talkback presented by League Company. When we come back, there's one name we have not mentioned yet. We've been through a lot of names. We talked about a lot of dudes. I know. That's a little bit of a
trying to give
surprise.
everybody shout-outs, man.
Absolutely.
It's preseason.
Absolutely. One guy, you mentioned Cortland Finnegan.
Okay.
At the cornerback position. There is a DB on this roster that I think has a little bit of Cortland Finnegan in him.
Yeah.
That we've not mentioned yet. Let's talk about that guy coming up next. Titans Talkback presented by League Company right here at 104.5 The Zone. It is Titans Talkback presented by League Company here on a Saturday night in Nashville, Tennessee. The Tennessee Titans a winner tonight over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 13-3 in Nissan Stadium. Will Boling and Kevin Dyson here with you. We're here for the next half hour, rocking with you until midnight right here on 104.5 The Zone. Brought to you again by League Company. League Company, all you need. Visit them online at leaguecompany.com. All right, so you mentioned Cortland Finnegan. You mentioned the undersized, scrappy corners.
Yeah.
First start tonight for Roger Mccreary.
Yo, we hadn't mentioned him.
We have not.
Dang.
Yeah. Rookie out of Auburn. Thought he looked good.
Yeah. Solid. Active.
Didn't give up catch. So that's again where
Another
if
guy.
we're not mentioning you as a corner, you probably did a pretty good job.
Yeah, it's true. Forgot about mentioning him tim
Yeah.
Another guy who's popping off the page again.
Yeah.
And we finally get to see what he looks like after last year. So I'm happy with his progression. Obviously, I think he is too. Today was good sighting of him to see what he can do.
I feel confident in his ability to contribute here pretty quickly because we have seen him play outside. We have seen him play inside. And talking about guys that, quote unquote, love ball, using John Robinson's words of what he's looking for players within this organization and within this franchise. Mccreary fits the bill of undersized. The knock on him coming out of Auburn was his lack of length, didn't have very long arms. But look, when you cover Jerry Jeudy and Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith and Jamar Chase and all those dudes in the SEC, and you come out of there leading the SEC in pass breakups, I don't care how long your arms are. I want you to play football for me.
Yeah, at some point, a player's a player, right?
That's right.
And he's one of those guys, man. He's seen it all as far as from a talent and skill standpoint. He hasn't seen route combinations and schemes, as he will, in the National Football League. Even though college and pros blend in a little bit more, man, they're blurring the lines a lot more in the way they call the games now offensively. But that is where you see a guy who has been at the top level of talent as far as receivers go.
Mm-hmm.
Some of this young, fresh talent that's coming in, he's ready to compete.
Yeah.
And he's starting to grow like that. So that, again, and we talked about this a minute ago, depth being crucial, especially in defense side of football. Well, both sides, shoot.
Yeah.
Depth is always good.
Absolutely. No doubt about that. Other defensive backs who kind of flashed tonight, we mentioned Josh Kalu. Any other names that we haven't said? Lonnie Johnson coming over, former Kentucky safety, young guy who the Kansas City Chiefs traded for and then released. So I don't know. That one doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But another guy that impressed me a little bit, I think that safety position is certainly a more interesting one than it was this time a week ago.
Yeah.
Partly because of the injury to Theo Jackson, a guy who we saw kind of start in that spot in Baltimore. Josh Kalu, Lonnie Johnson. I mean, you talk about Adrian Colbert. I mean, one of those three guys I think is probably on the 53.
Yeah. And you talked about their ability as far as skill set in the secondary and what they're able to recognize coverages and schemes and route pattern combinations, but how well are they performing on that special teams as well?
Right.
Yeah, and that's what you got to keep your eye on next week as they start evaluating the depth or contribution that they have in special teams. If you see a guy pop off the page, yeah, he probably got a spot.
Titans who did not play tonight. We'll run through some of the highlights here of the big names that you did not see. Robert Woods, saw him in uniform, did not play tonight. Of course, Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, you know about them. Trenton Cannon, Elijah Molden, Theo Jackson, Kevin Byard. I'm not going to run through the whole list here, but just some of these other names. Chris Jackson, did not see him out there today. Zach Cunningham and David Long. You saw the 3 and 4, Chance Campbell and Jack Gibbons at the inside linebacker position. No Dylan Cole, no Monty Rice. Again, that's 4 inside linebackers right there, unavailable tonight. Harold Landry, Ben Jones, Nate Davis, Jamarco Jones, Tommy Hudson, Danico Autry, and Jeffrey Simmons. How many of those guys do you need to see next week? I know that's a long list. I'm putting you on the spot. But how important would it be to get those reps? If you're on that list, you haven't played 2 games in the preseason. I know it's case by case and kind of position by position, but how important is it for the Titans to get Ryan Tannehill, to get Kevin Byard, to get Jeffrey Simmons back on the field against Arizona?
I would have said prior to last year, that is super important. You want to at least have some game feel, get a couple bumps out of you. a couple bruises out of you that you go through in the preseason games. I was good with the reduction of the games and things of that nature because there was a lot. But I would have said prior to last year, it is absolutely crucial. But they came out last year. Maybe Tannehill didn't have as good a season statistically passing the football as he did the year before.
Mm-hmm.
But the team won the division, was competing to go to the Super Bowl. And that's what you want at the end of the day. You want to be able to compete for a Super Bowl. And had the King not got hurt in that little stretch, who knows where the season would have ended up.
Absolutely.
It's that's what you want when you're going forward as you're trying to make these last roster moves and thinking about what this team is going to be built like for 2022.
615-737-1045, the number here on Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. Talking about the defensive backs as well and the guys who were or weren't out there. I could tell we weren't going to see a lot of Roger Mccreary after the first kick of the game and the first kickoff when he made an open field tackle on special teams. And I quickly was just kind of like, oh, okay, all right, we're good. Yeah. Right? Like Mike Vrabel is I think pretty confident in what he has in this guy. And Shane Bowen said it a couple of weeks ago in post-practice media availability, said, I don't view him as a rookie. That's how good he's been. That's how quickly he has implemented himself within this defense. I don't see him as a rookie. That's about as high a praise as I feel like you can give a guy a couple weeks into his first training camp.
That speaks volumes. That speaks to his ability to prepare, his ability to get on the same page with a defense coordinator. And again, we talked about communication earlier too with his secondary mates. That speaks volumes to his production and way he's performing right now in practice and obviously in games today. He was solid.
He gets a total of 19 defensive snaps tonight, 3 on special teams. Josh Kalu and Lonnie Johnson had the joint most snaps on the defensive side of the football tonight with 37.
Okay.
Leading the way with special team snaps, Adrian Colbert. We mentioned a week ago Theo Jackson led the Titans in that department against Baltimore in special team snaps. Colbert now kind of filling that role for Theo when he's been out this past week in joint practices with Tampa Bay, kind of fills that spot. He only had 18 defensive snaps. Caleb Farley with 26 defensive snaps. I thought it was good to kind of give him a good little run there of really playing the whole first half.
I was about to say the same thing. That's good. That's a good pitch count for him. Get his legs under him, see how he is. If them legs were throbbing a little bit more at the play 10, how did your legs recover from drive to drive? That was a good showing for him as far as reps. He probably appreciated getting those reps in.
Amani Hooker back on the field as well tonight. 8 snaps for him. Guy who's been a little banged up over the last couple of weeks. If we were going to do a topic of most underrated Titans, I think I might start that conversation with Amani Hooker.
And it's good to see him get out there, as you mentioned, and coming up from injuries and things like that he's had over the stint of his career. Again, I would love to ask some of these defensive players, like, do you really want, especially hitters, do you want to come down, you want to bang a couple times, get your shoulders loose and get your traps right, or you prefer just, let me go through my reads, get where I need to get to, and then get to the regular season where it counts. So I would love to ask one of those hitters like that what their mindset was or is in the preseason.
One of those hitters was Bud Dupree. We saw him out there for a couple of series as well. 8 defensive snaps for him. Of course, nothing on special teams for him as he works his way back into the fold. Ola Adeni, 21 snaps. Rashad Weaver, mentioned him as my player of the game tonight for the Titans. 26 snaps for him. Far and away, the leader of defensive snaps was Dr. Gibbons, who Mike Vrabel is starting to like quite a bit. Jack Gibbons gets 47 defensive snaps tonight, 9 on special teams. Chance Campbell, Joe Jones, and Rashad Weaver, each in double digits of special team snaps as well. Chance Campbell or Jack Gibbons probably makes this team, or at least is on the practice squad within the mix. But again, that's where Monty Rice's status being up in the air kind of changes that conversation a bit.
I mean, again, if those are your problems, those are good problems.
That's right.
I feel like guys, just in a short stint, right? We only got a sample size of a couple games, but obviously they're popping out the page and being consistent, making plays. Coaches, I'll be interested in their evaluation. That's why I'm always interested in the evaluation process and what are you looking for to complement the guy in front of you or the starter? How do we complement our roster? How do we come? This guy's real strong on kickoff, but this guy, if we put him in on third down, he can really give us something. Like, what are the determining factors to lean one way than the other? I would love to be a fly on the wall for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's interesting how that evolves year to year, too.
Yeah, absolutely, right? You're determined on your needs, and free agency now is a big thing in football, in sport, professional sports in general. But just be interested to be a fly on the wall and hear those conversations and how they make those final roster moves, those added guys, those guys that are kind of, they go somewhere else, they might be a starter.
Right.
They hear their role and why are they in that role. So
615-737-1045. One final call for phone calls here on Titans Talkback, presented by League Company. Facility managers need a reliable partner for their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical needs. They trust League Company's 24/7 service and their team of experts. Your next play, visit leaguecompany.com. League Company, all you need. One final segment coming up next. Will Boling and Kevin Dyson with you. It's Titans Talkback, presented by League Company on 104.5 The Zone. One final segment tonight on Titans Talkback, presented by Elite Company. The Tennessee Titans a winner 13-3 over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Preseason will conclude next Saturday night as the Titans host the Arizona Cardinals in Nissan Stadium. Will Boling and Kevin Dyson back with you for one final time. And one final call on the phone lines again at 615-737-1045. Steven's hanging out with us watching on YouTube. We got somebody out there awake with us tonight, Dice, saying, tighten up from Houston. Glad to see the game tonight. Thanks for watching, Steven. So final thoughts from us on this performance for the Tennessee Titans. They're going to get a different kind of look this week, Kevin, in practice with Arizona coming in. I was more interested in watching the Titans offense this week against the Tampa Bay front seven, since Tom Brady wasn't here. No Chris Godwin, no Mike Evans, a little bit of Julio Jones in there, and no Russell Gage. But this week, I am all eyes on the Titans defense.
Yeah.
Because they've got a legit QB1 and Kyler Murray who's coming in here to practice against them for 2 days plus a preseason contest next weekend.
You know, as I talked about it earlier, with there seemed to be some blurred lines between what was presumed as college-style offenses versus pro-style offenses. And you see somebody like Arizona who's taking some concepts from college and infusing them with some pro-style concept and formations and reads and things of the nature that work with the speed of professional athletes when everybody on the field is fast and the expectation is different. And you see somebody like Arizona who's created, quote unquote, a hybrid, if you will, and has some success from a statistical standpoint. They put up a lot of points. Now it just got equates to they're starting to win. They won the division, things of that nature. So they present a different set of challenges offensively, different speed of play than your traditional teams like Tampa Bay. So it's a good challenge for the defense. It's a very good challenge, especially in the way the offenses are starting to trend in the National Football League with these athletically gifted quarterbacks.
Arizona has these new black helmets. Now that teams can have the alternate helmets, they just look like the Atlanta Falcons to me also now.
Does that to you?
Looks exactly like the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah.
Red jerseys, white pants, black helmets, and a bird on the side.
Yep.
I don't know.
Sounds familiar.
615-737-1045. No, looking at their notes coming in, and Kevin Parrish of azcardinals.com writing about their matchup tomorrow with the Titans' first preseason opponent, the Baltimore Ravens. They will have the chance to do what the Titans were unable to do and end a 21-game preseason winning streak for the Baltimore Ravens.
Ooh.
That they've got right now. They're like the preseason Super Bowl champions. I don't understand how that's possible, but
I don't either.
I'll tell you what, Titans fans are going to see a familiar face on the back end of the Arizona Cardinals roster at the quarterback position. Got a former Tennessee Vol that's playing quarterback for them right now.
Who's that?
Jarrett Garantano.
Wow.
Is battling with Trace McSorley to back up Kyler Murray. Colt McCoy has had a sore wrist, or Kyler Murray, rather, a bout with COVID and a sore wrist. Colt McCoy has had arm issues. So those two guys have gotten a ton of reps. And
two familiar names.
Jarrett Garantano, last time he played in Nashville would have been, I don't know, well, it would have been probably at Vanderbilt Stadium.
Yeah.
So it would not have been at a Nissan Stadium. But a familiar face coming into St. Thomas Sports Park this week with the Arizona Cardinals for joint practices. 615-737-1045. Let's go back to the phones where Philip in Hendersonville wants to talk some wide receivers with us. What's going on, Philip?
Hey, guys. Appreciate y'all having me. I heard a caller earlier talking about Traylon Burks, so worried about Traylon Burks. I think what everybody's forgetting is between our quarterbacks, they threw for 117 yards total. Not a lot of yards to go around. I think it'll be a game changer when Tannehill gets behind center and you add Robert Woods to the other side to where you take some of the heat off. And I think Kyle Phillips is going to be something special, especially on those short yardage. And you saw him in the punt game tonight. So appreciate y'all taking my call, and I hope y'all have a wonderful night.
Absolutely. Thank you for the call,
That was
Philip.
a good call, and I totally agree with him. The assessment of what's going on. I think Kyle Phillips is just a guy that's popping off the page, off the screen. It's hard to keep him off the field. He's already been kind of solidified this position of punt returner. Yes, he is, but he's not because we're still competing. But other than that, I mean, he's right.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be to see the direction they go from here.
There was one Malik Willis run late on in the second quarter in the red zone around the 20-yard line where Treylon Burks was wide open over the middle of the field on a crossing route. Malik Willis's eyes never really saw him. And I think that is, again, we talk about why Logan Woodside is there, why the Titans are making the decisions that they are at the quarterback position right now. It's because Treylon Burks has one catch through 2 preseason games.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Malik Willis is not looking towards Treylon Burks for whatever reason so far. And, you know, some of that may be on Treylon Burks, some of that may be on Malik Willis, and some of it may be offensive line's not blocking long enough for Burks' routes to develop downfield.
Yep. And some of it may be schematically, just depending on formation and down and distance. Some the coverage slid one way, and that changed the read concept. So, you know, again, I want to see him competing. I want to see him the effort and blocking, especially as a young guy. Some of the veterans can get away with not blocking as far as receivers concerned.
That's right.
Young guy, you don't have the luxury, especially when you got a back like Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to be downfield extending plays. You know, I'm not too far gone on him just yet. I think he still needs to provide some opportunities to make plays, get some opportunities. He's only had 4 targets. He may be a volume receiver, meaning, you know, he's a 7, 8, 10 catch guy that gets 105 yards or something like that, as opposed to a guy that might be 4 for 100,
right?
A big play guy. So we'll see. It remains to be seen.
I think Ryan Tannehill's 2 third-down targets, based on what we've seen so far in training camp, will be Kyle Phillips and Austin Hooper. I think those 2 guys, traditionally, Ryan Tannehill relies on his tight end and his slot receiver on third downs.
That bodes well for especially Mr. Phillips.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, Kyle Phillips may end up with more total receptions than Treylon Burks. I think Treylon Burks is ultimately going to grow into that wide receiver 1.
I agree.
I mean, the frame, the skills, that they don't make him like you know, the good Lord made Treylon Burks.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know what you mean.
I mean, honestly.
Yeah, and here he is, though. You still got Westbrook Akine, Woods, consummate pro veteran coming from a winning pedigree. So it's good to have depth, but there's still some question marks on those gentlemen too, right? Mm-hmm. As far as their productivity and can they handle it? This is Robert Woods. He's kind of the number one. Where he's kind of shared that role, if you will, in LA. So it's going to be interesting for Treylon in his progression as far as what is he utilized for when he does get the opportunity to be in the game. Is he going to be the vertical threat? Is he going to be more, let's get the ball in his hands later, use a big frame to run after catch? What is his role going to be, especially early on for this Titans receiving roster?
Going to be interesting to see, and against an Arizona Cardinals defense that will come into town this week and give Tennessee a little bit more of a competitive atmosphere. 2 joint practices. I wonder, we got about a minute left in the show here. I bet that's probably a bigger point of emphasis for a lot of teams with the one less preseason game. You know, right? Less time to see somebody else, one less game. All right, well, let's get more work with somebody else then once they come in town.
Yeah, I'll be interested to hear the mindset of that from an organization standpoint. I think earlier something about, do you play Tannehill in this game? Well, I'm thinking now you have 2 competitive scrimmages with different bodies, different schemes. Is this now the quote-unquote preseason games for some of these teams now to go ahead and compete with multiple different franchises, as opposed to putting your guys out there with a bunch of guys trying to make roster spots?
Yeah. I'm putting them in there for 2 drives if it's me.
Yeah.
Maybe a quarter, and that's it.
So that's definitely what the fans would want for sure.
Yeah, that's right. Considering the way the Titans looked against Arizona in Week 1 last year, and
you want to see the guys
looking like
reps.
they hadn't practiced, you know.
Yeah.
Some of that because of injuries, but look, I mean, I think at this point, certainly wouldn't hurt unless Ryan Tannehill gets hurt. That would hurt, but obviously, I think at this point, that is the risk that you take. Fun show with you. We got one more preseason show next week, and enjoyed it as always.
Yes, sir. Have fun. Good night, y'all.
Absolutely. Titans Talkback presented by League Company. League Company, all you need. Visit them online at leaguecompany.com. Titans radio coverage is produced by Philip Noel and Brad Willis. Studio producer Joe Hunkapiller. Scoreboard producer Lucas Panzica. Spotter Brad Willis. Promotions director Marie Bradshaw. Director of sales is Hunter Rice. General manager Allison Warren. Operation managers Charlie Cook and Paul Mason. Executive producer Rhett Bryan. For Brent Batchelor, our producer, for Kevin Dyson, I'm Will Boling saying good night. We'll be right back at it again next week as the Titans take on the Arizona Cardinals.